Right, good morning everybody. Thank you for joining us for this session on Meet the Regulators. So I'm going to hand over to George Brown from SQA Accreditation for an update on the work going on in Scotland. So George, over to you.
Thanks, Dan. So as most people know, the Education Scotland Act was passed earlier this summer, and it's brought Qualifications Scotland into being. We discovered recently that we will go live as an organisation as Qualifications Scotland on the 1st of December, but we won't become live until the 1st of February. And that's because a Scotland Act order needs to be passed through the UK Parliament. So it also gives the chair an opportunity to get the board in place. So the Act requires that there's a certain number of people have to join the board. So there has to be a learner representative, a teacher representative, a staff representative. So recruitment is underway for those. Some nominations have been passed to the Cabinet Secretary, and the chair's hopeful that these will be approved by the end of November, which will allow a shadow board to be created in December. The Act also requires that there has to be an appointment of a Chief Accreditation Officer. That's underway. Interviews are taking place in early December. And obviously with a notice period, it's probably going to be March before the Chief Accreditation Officer's in post. The other thing that's worth saying is that the Act requires there's got to be a review of the accreditation function 2 years after Qualifications Scotland goes live. There's a lot of debate during stage 2 of the bill, considering where we should be placed and what we should be doing. So this review in 2 years' time will again consider the scope of the accreditation function of Qualifications Scotland and its location.
Brilliant, thank you, George. So we're going to dive into sort of a few sort of questions as well now. These have been pulled together through questions submitted by members ahead of the conference. And the first questions are concerning sort of the future for skills and qualifications in Scotland. So looking forward, what skills or qualification areas are you expecting growth in, and how can awarding bodies align early to this?
Okay. The one area that's been highlighted recently in the Scottish media is the space sector, believe it or not. Not something that I was particularly aware of, but having done a bit of research into it and looking at the media articles. So about at the moment in Scotland, there's about 8,000 people working in jobs related to the space sector. Scotland's got 5 spaceports in various stages of development. Some are closer to being operational than others, particularly one in Shetland. Over the next 10 years, they're expecting the number of people employed in that sector to grow to about 20,000 people. They're expecting the first launch of satellites in 2026, and the Shetland spaceport, when it is operational, expected to launch up to 30 satellites per year. So it's going to be fairly big business in Scotland. And the types of roles that they're looking for, and again, I didn't have a clue what this was. I had to look up an embedded engineer, something to do with software, system engineers, as well as the usual manufacturing jobs, including welders. So that seems to be the big growth area that Scotland's got for the next wee while.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's quite interesting. That's it's quite an interesting area to have growth.
Yeah, and I hadn't realised there's about 230 companies in Scotland that are already in the space sector.
Oh, well. Right, so moving on to the next question. Should there be greater collaboration between SQA accreditation and vocational AOs to ensure that all professions, occupations and Scottish learners have the best skills and education pathways available to them? If that would be a positive outcome for the Scottish economy, how is that best achieved?
That's a really good question, and one that I would wholly endorse. There's a tertiary education bill going through Scottish Parliament just now. And we've got 3 funding bodies: Skills Development Scotland, Scottish Funding Council, and SAS. I can never remember what SAS stands for, Student Awards Agency Support, something like that. But the government wants to reduce that to 2 bodies. So Scottish Funding Council, which will fund qualifications essentially, and SAS, which will fund students. So as part of that work, the sort of skills planning part of SDS will remain, but Scottish Government will take the lead on skills planning going forward. and I've had some early discussion with the people involved in setting that skills planning unit. As you know, there's a National Occupational Standards Programme, which is run by the three devolved nations. And at this time of year, we start to think about what projects we want to run in the forthcoming financial year. And we always struggle a little bit with this one. We usually work with standard setting organisations to get intelligence. And hopefully going forward, this new skills planning unit will give us more information. The bit in the jigsaw that I think we miss is that once we've got a list of projects, we don't validate those projects with awarding bodies. So we've had occasions in the past where we've asked for SVQs to be developed because we see as an emerging need. We get the SVQ structure developed, but then no awarding body picks up the SVQ. And that's where I think we need to close that loop. There needs to be a discussion. Once we've got the projects identified, we need to share it with awarding bodies and get their views on it so that we're not wasting public money developing qualification products that are not going to get used.
Brilliant, thank you. Just shifting now to think about the wider UK changes, and in particular the changes in England about moving skills to DWP. And so with that movement of Skills England into DWP, is there now an opportunity to bring skills policy back together in a more uniform way across the UK to ease some of the burden experienced by organisations working on both sides of the border?
Somehow I doubt it very much. As I mentioned, there's a tertiary education bill going through Parliament, through Scottish Parliament. And within that bill, there's a proposal to come up with a legal definition for an apprentice, an apprenticeship. And obviously skills is a devolved matter for Scottish Government. So unless there's a change in government up here, who knows? But I think it's unlikely.
Okay, thank you. And obviously Skills England's part of their remit do have a responsibility, do have sort of that cross-nation engagement in their remit, but
Yes.
there's clearly a lot of reform going on both sides of the border, and looking difficult in marrying those sides up, really.
Yeah, I am aware that so as I said, the NOS program's managed by the three devolved nations, and there's a NOS governance group that sits, which is the three governments, civil service three governments. They are keen to engage with Skills England, and I think it's more about getting Skills England to start using NOS again, rather than looking at uniformity across the UK.
Well, thank you. So just moving on to the recent post-16 education skills white paper, and obviously this announced big changes for qualifications, vocational and technical qualifications in England. How, if at all, do you expect those reforms, the development of V levels and new qualifications at level 2, and then the subsequent defunding of qualifications at those levels? How do you expect those reforms to impact on the vocational and technical qualifications offer in Scotland, if at all?
Yeah, it's something we've been keeping an eye on over the years. DFE have reduced the number of level 3s and so on. So we've kept an eye on that. It's not really impacted the provision that we have that's accredited. I think going forward, again, as part of the development of the education bill, we were involved in a short life working group looking at what colleges deliver in Scotland and what proportion of those qualifications are accredited by us. And there's a large number of qualifications offered in the college sector that are not accredited by us, but are clearly RQF qualifications. So it may have an impact on the college sector, but maybe not on the accredited sector.
Well, thank you. And then just sticking with those changes in England as well, Ofqual have recently introduced the new principles condition that is actually going to go sort of into force a few days after the conference. Is this something that the regulator in Scotland is looking at and considering sort of how that relates to your principles framework as well?
Well, we've looked at it, but I don't think we'll be adopting them. As you said, we've got our own set of regulatory principles, and they're standalone. There's no condition sitting beneath those. As I said earlier, there's going to be a 2-year review of a review in 2 years' time of the accreditation function, so that might bring about a change. And obviously, the recruitment of a chief accreditation officer, he or she may have an entirely different view, but certainly the view of the team at the moment is we stick with what we've got.
Well, thank you. And Our final two questions from members just delve in a little bit about how SQA accreditation regulates. So, what are SQA accreditation doing to monitor the impact of AI on awarding bodies?
Yeah, so we're picking up this through our awarding body audits. We've taken a view that providing that the use of AI is ethical and complies with our principles, then there shouldn't be a problem. But it's obviously something we want to keep an eye on. We're also picking this up through our provider monitoring visits. So each year we visit a sample of each awarding body's providers. We're not interested in provider per se, but it's more the awarding body system. So we're also having a look to see if providers are using AI and how they're using it. So we're picking up through those activities. It's a hot topic. We have two awarding body forums per year, every 6 months. It's a standing item at that meeting. We have a discussion with the awarding bodies. We invite them to actually share with the others about how they're using AI. And that seems to be going down quite well. Our accreditation committee are very keen on this. They've made it a standing item, so every quarter we've got to take an update to the accreditation committee on how AI is being used and any issues we found. So it's certainly something we have got our eye on.
Right, thank you. And final question, how do you evaluate whether awarding body policies protect candidates' rights and welfare?
Again, we do this through our audits and through providing monitoring visits. As a public sector body, we have to have a set of equality outcomes. And we produced the latest equality outcomes earlier this year. And there's a specific equality outcome relating to accreditation. And we shared that with the awarding bodies at the most recent forum we had in September. One of the common issues that we found over the last couple of years is that providers cannot get the protected characteristics right in their equality policies. So we've been asking awarding bodies to assist us to make sure that providers do have an appropriate policy in place. We'll look at this again through the provider monitoring visits we do, looking to make sure that there is no unfair treatment, no discrimination taking place, etc., etc. We want to work hand in hand with the awarding bodies in this because, as I say, we've got a public duty to make sure that equality is embedded in what we do. So it's something that we look at every time we go out.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, George. That's the end of the our questions. So, just finally, thank you for providing your time for this, and I'm sure you won't mind me saying George is retiring at the end of the year, and so just extend our thanks for sort of many years supporting FAB and the FAB conference and your contributions here. So, best of luck for retirement as well, George.
Thank you very much, Dan. Appreciate it.